Jesus Christ doesn't like demonic spirits within a human spirit. Jesus Christ hates demonic spirits to be within a human being. Do you know that? You hate Jesus, huh? Well, Jesus commands you to leave. How's that?
Famous demonologists and paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren have a much darker past than we realized. We all know of the Conjuring movies and how they're based off of their real life experiences, but we've never seen the real entities that they talk about until today. In today's video, I will be sharing with you some of the scariest lost footage from Ed and Lorraine Warren. Starting off this countdown, we have the Warrens Museum.
Perhaps the most haunted area in the world. That's what I would say.
I would say that it is one of the most haunted areas because of the many things here, Tony.
In this video, we get a behind-the-scenes view into the Warrens Occult Museum. It's well known that this museum houses some of the most haunted and cursed items in the world.
This is a collection of items on the occult that have been used in diabolical experiences by many different types of people into black magic, wizardry, sorcery, and so forth.
In fact, a number of people have gone and visited this museum and said that things have followed them home. Some who have touched objects they weren't supposed to either fell deathly ill after, or some even passed away in tragic accidents, such as a couple who touched an artifact that was cursed and later passed away driving home from the museum.
These are all things that you then would consider evil, Ed?
Oh, positively. In fact, this is not a building that you should be in after 9 o'clock at night.
Now, if that doesn't say how deadly this museum and the artifacts are, then I don't know what will. So in this video, we see Ed point out some of the creepiest items that he owns from all around the world. He starts with explaining that 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. is when the items in the room are most active, so no one can be in the room at those times. How creepy is that? Next, he went on to talk about a cursed mirror.
Hey, Ed, to the right of me, I see there's a mirror. Can you tell me about that mirror?
That's a magic mirror that a gentleman used in New Jersey to conjure up spirits.
Okay.
Ghosts, apparitions, demons, devils can reflect their images on a shiny surface very easily. This was used for that purpose, only the man who did the conjuring, unfortunately, today is in a mental institution.
The mirror was used in New Jersey by a man to conjure up spirits. So to this day, ghosts and spirits have been seen in this mirror trying to escape. If you didn't know, mirrors are said to be portals to the spirit world. Ghosts can often travel to and from places through mirrors. And, well, this man purposely cursed this mirror. That's crazy. And folks, that's why you don't mess around with spirits, because this man ended up in a mental institution. That's not all though.
Ed, I want to point out these statues, or what?
Yes.
Voodoo dolls?
These are fertility dolls from Africa.
Let's talk about the collection of haunted statues they have. So these statues were stolen from a witch doctor.
Over here you see the one which is covered with human blood, and there are 7 of them that were stolen from a witch doctor. You do not steal things from witch doctors ever. The man who stole them died a terrible death.
And anyone who owned them ended up getting terribly cursed.
The man he sent them to, who was right in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he and his wife suffered for 2 years and then finally died.
Now you might be thinking, Lindsay, how do these objects end up being cursed? Can anything become cursed? The answer is yes. Let's take a look at this haunted Halloween mask.
It's a typical Halloween mask.
Right.
The problem with this is that many people buy these masks and they use them actually in black magic.
This is an example of why we can't have nice things. People will take normal items and use them for sinister acts.
This one was put on a person's head. They looked into a mirror, they took the mask off, and they visualized themselves as looking like this. They created a physical manifestation of a tulpa.
So if you thought, hey, let's go to the museum and try that mask on. No, don't. Unless you want to lose your sanity. Lastly, let's talk about Aunt Matilda.
Well, we have this young bride here, picture. That's very interesting. A couple had bought the picture, and they wanted to furnish their home in all Victorian because it was an old Victorian house. 2 weeks after they put up the picture, Aunt Matilda started visiting them.
This is your sign to never buy random photos of someone who you don't know, no matter how cool you think they are.
And they thought that they had better call it a day. They called me up and brought the picture here.
Yeah, the couple was like, oh cool, a Victorian photo, and then they literally brought that spirit home. So, next up we have the Haunted Mansion.
In the Lonely Mansion House, owned by Lord Towns, there have been many who have I've seen her.
In this clip, the Warrens show a real image of a ghostly woman who haunted a creepy old mansion. So in 1937, a professional photographer was commissioned to take photos of the owner's mansion. After setting up his camera to take photos of the grand staircase, he saw a ghostly woman walking down the stairs towards him.
As he was going about his work, he had just set up his camera when, to his great surprise, he found he was not alone.
So he snapped this photo. And this ghost is none other than Dorothy Walpool. Dorothy was an English aristocrat born on September 18th, 1686. Long story short, she was married to Lord Townshend. But rumor has it that she cheated on him with Lord Wharton. I know. Some reports claim that Lady Wharton lured Dorothy to be locked away. She was all like, hell nah, you used my husband to cheat on your husband, get out of here. So she invited her over and held her prisoner. Some say she was trapped there until she died of smallpox. A different version says she died after being pushed down the stairway, the same stairway that she was later photographed on.
Tragedies create the ghost syndrome. Thus we have this haunting occurring over hundreds of years.
To this day, that photo is incredibly famous and is said to be one of the most famous photos of a ghost caught on camera. Moving on, we have the Exorcism.
Jesus Christ hates demonic spirits to be within a human being. Do you know that? You hate Jesus, huh?
The next video I'm about to share with you was taken during a real exorcism that Lorraine Warren and her son-in-law, Tony Spira, conducted. Now, the video is blurred by Tony himself for safety reasons. Not only is he protecting the identity of the man in the video that goes by Roberto, but he's protecting us from the gruesome sights that he encountered.
This is your savior right here. Roberto, this is your savior right here. This is your savior right here. See that? That's your savior right there.
Yeah. Yes, that's him.
No demonic spirit can conquer Jesus Christ.
So in this video, we can hear Lorraine trying to expel the demon out of Roberto.
Tell Christ you love him. Tell
Because
Christ you
loves
love
you.
him.
Christ loves you, Roberto. He always has and always will.
You tell him you love him. Love him.
There's no shame in that.
She is getting him to chant things like Christ loves you and you need to love him. And at first, the demon is not loving that. We can hear this deep, raspy growl that he continues to let out, which frankly sounds horrifying. Eventually, they get Roberto to end up saying, Jesus help me, but it did take a lot out of him.
The power to save is Jesus Christ. The power to love is Jesus Christ.
Because he will. All you have to do is ask him. Jesus help me.
Say it. Say it.
Jesus. Jesus. You can do it, Roberto. We have faith in you.
Jesus help me.
Slowly but surely, they were trying to get this demon out. Things slowly take a turn when Roberto mentions his daughter.
God is almighty, and God will protect you from everything. His daughter.
It's my daughter. It's his daughter. It's our daughter.
Now, his daughter was not in the room, but his wife was.
What's the problem?
What's he saying about?
She's the little girl that has those things come to her. Yes, please.
We can hear her say how the spirits initially clung to their daughter, and we know that spirits do target vulnerable kids. And that's probably how he ended up getting cursed. What's wild is that towards the end of the video, his wife told Tony and Lorraine how several years ago, Roberto got depressed and was diagnosed as bipolar and that he had mania. A year later, he started acting possessed. So it seems like the demons were controlling him for quite some time before fully taking over his body. Everything he was diagnosed with was actually a result from his possession. In our next spot, we have the museum again, because it's horrifying. I could do a whole series on the creepy objects that the Warrens have in their museum. It's absolutely insane. Even more insane is how they managed to lock everything up to keep the entities trapped in their museum. First, let's talk about the death curse.
This here.
That's a death curse, which was put on a young girl who had just been married and she died 2 weeks later.
Curses are very much real and dangerous and should not be taken lightly. Take a listen to Ed's explanation on how this curse was made.
What do you call that? You
A
call it
Mayariah death curse. What happens is that a wizard or a sorceress can project telepathic hypnosis. The girl was driving along. She was with another young lady. She suddenly screamed out, a deer, and she turned the wheel, hit a tree, and was killed. There was no deer.
So in this case, the death curse manipulated the young girl so that she would hallucinate and crash her car. How can it get worse than that? Well, the Warrens own a piece of the plane from Flight 401, the plane that went down in the Florida Everglades. All 110 people on board were killed as a result. After this crash, parts of the plane were used in other planes, and some other parts were taken by college students. Well, guess what? Anyone that owned a piece of this plane saw ghostly apparitions.
And Don Repo, a navigator, soon started appearing on planes that had parts from that plane taken. I have many parts of that.
They would see and hear the deceased engineer and second officer Donald or Don Repo.
They had his voice on the
Flight recorder?
flight recorder. Stewardesses, pilots, talked to this man. Talked to his spirit in the plane. This is all a matter of official record.
The parts that got installed into other planes, the passengers would often see a shadowy figure, and everyone said it was of Don. This just shows you how spirits can latch onto items basically associated with their death. In our second spot, we have the Lady in White. There's a Lady in White that haunts the Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut. She was apparently the victim of betrayal by her lover and died either by taking her own life or was actually killed by her lover. Well, it was actually part of Ed's mission to find this lady and get photographic evidence of her, and he succeeded.
White Lady has often been seen in and around Union Graveyard. But we've been getting reports for the past 20-some years of people who claim that they've seen a lady in white going along, on the road out there in the cemetery. I stayed in that graveyard for 7 nights.
Ed stayed in that graveyard for 7 nights from midnight to about 6 in the morning. And finally, on September 1st of 1990 at 2:40 in the morning, he saw her. Here is the footage that he captured.
Yes,
There's the
look.
ghost.
These are what we
isn't that
call ghost
beautiful?
globules.
Yes.
Now, when a person sees one of these in a home, for instance in a bedroom, it'll float around the room, then it'll go into a cigar shape, and then you will see the apparition or ghost.
She presented herself as white orbs or a white blur. Often the white orbs would then come together and form the shape of her before disappearing. Now, here's a short story from Rod Vexey that actually encountered this woman.
When I had my experience with the White Lady, I think it was a month or two before you got her on film, and it was about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, driving home. There was a slight mist on the road. The road was a little damp. Came up the hill a little bit, and as I came up the hill coming up past the cemetery, I felt like someone was on my right side. And I looked over, and there was a person, just like Ed, sitting here, that solid, sitting there. Well, I did one of those, looked forward, looked back. That figure was gone, and in front of me, I'd say a good 60, 70 feet in front of me, there was a woman standing in the road.
After his encounter, he was so spooked that he hit up the Warrens.
And as soon as I tapped on the brakes, she went from about 70 feet out to right in front of the car, and the thing that I remember the most was her hand came up in a motion like that, sort of like she was not trying to grab me, but she was reaching out, and that figure, it didn't visually come right through the car, but it went through my car. If you could understand that, if you take your hand and wave it past your head, you feel a little breeze.
And honestly, that's terrifying. I swear, what he saw is something straight out of the Shining movie. That's crazy.
After that happened, I looked in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind me, and in front of me, the road turned like a deep cranberry red. Just my lane of the road.
And in our last spot today, we have the ruins of Haunted Abbey. In this footage, the Warrens talk all about the ruins of a haunted monetary building in Monroe, Connecticut. They even have an interview with a man named Charlie Hayden who experienced a number of weird incidents while on the grounds. He was about 22 when this happened. He was out exploring a cornfield with a girl when all of a sudden they started hearing weird noises.
And all of a sudden there was like this noise, just out of nowhere. It just started right up. There was nobody around this tractor. There's no way that they could hide around it in any way whatsoever. The engine on this tractor started.
One of the tractors near them randomly turned on.
It just started up. There's nobody else around it.
Just started up. There's nobody around it. There's no way that anybody could have jumped on this tractor and started it with a key, because it was not a tractor that had a battery and a key in it. This tractor had to be cranked.
Some spirits have the power to manipulate electricity and machines. And that's not the first time that the Warrens have heard stories like that about this area. See, to me, anyone could make up like a haunting story, right? And spark attention. But when there are multiple reports and multiple witnesses, that's when I believe it, because there's some sort of validity behind that. All right, folks, that's all for today's video. If you want to see more parts to this, then let me know in the comments below. I'll also link a playlist because I've done, I think, 3 or 4 parts, so I'll link it up above. And again, that's all. Thank you all so much for sticking around. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan. Stick around for some bloopers, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye. In fact, a number, my laundry machine, I hope they can't hear it. And this is none other than Dorothy Walpool. Walpool? I don't know. Dorothy was an English aristocrat born on September 18th, 1686. So in this case, the death curse manipulated the young girls so that they would hallucinate. Well, the Warrens, in this footage, the Warrens talk all about the ruins of haunted